Good evening, TheoTrade. This is Corey Rosenblum, and you're watching the Theo Nightly video for the 27th of July here in 2021, and its earnings. It's the big ones. Now we have the Fed day tomorrow, which will be a Fed announcement, policy announcement, and any type of news. They aren't going to raise or change rates, but they will announce, or could announce, some policy guidance, and that could be a market mover for Wednesday. But before we get there, we have big market cap companies reporting earnings. Let's start with our days to earnings, and I'll actually put this in a little larger window so you can see it. Lots and lots of ways to find stocks that are reporting earnings on the session here in thinkorswim, but one of them is the days to earnings, and we can put that as a watch list or a column in a thinkorswim watch list, which is what I prefer to do. And just starting at the top, I'll pull this off the screen, but we've already seen earnings this morning. If it says 0, that means at the opening bell. If it says 0.5, that means at the close or after the close. So tomorrow, before we start talking about the immediate reports, we will have Bristol Myers Squibb, Boeing will announce, McDonald's, General Dynamics, Thermo, and Pfizer. That's before the bell. After the bell, big market cap names such as Facebook. That's the biggest one we'll report tomorrow, but next is PayPal, Qualcomm, and Ford. So Amazon actually reports a little bit later. And these are big market cap names. This is a big week for us all on TheoTrade. Let's start this particular video here at Tuesday night with Starbucks. Now what I'm doing is showing Don's weekly expected move indicator, and that's just looking at the straddles and looking at auto-generated pricing. So keep that in mind. You might want to calculate your own type of expected move, and that can be done mainly within the context of looking here, and that would be earnings-based expected move. Let's take a look at Starbucks. Now, its expected move plays up to, and you can see this here, 132.78. We have two different ways, front month or next month straddle in the option price. Jumping outside that logic, the upper bound is up here and the lower bound is in play. That lower bound is roughly 119.25, or the other way is about 115. Where are we now? We hit the low of 121. So you all will have the benefit of knowing, possibly, after I complete the video and publish the video, some after market movement in these stocks. And of course, we'll all be watching this pre-market tomorrow and throughout the trading session. So if you do not have positions on, that's okay. But note these targets or these expected move type of levels to play reversals. So if Starbucks does trade into these levels, that could be an intraday buy. Or you could additionally, especially on a gap down, short on the way down to go get these targets. That's why we look at these levels in evening videos. You can do the same type of planning at the end of the day or on your own charts. Starbucks is again pushing toward the lower bound. And we'll take a look at the reports and those earnings after the bell. So looking at Starbucks, we'll pick this one. And if you always want to look at other data, I won't necessarily do the numbers here for us, but you can go inside the Analyze tab and then go into the Earnings tab. You can always do a News tab and see what the earnings and the reports and any type of analysis would be on any stock that you might be interested or currently have positions on. So Starbucks will be down. We'll move now to Microsoft, and we'll see what the Microsoft expected move and what it's taking place after hours. And on Microsoft, we see that it's pushing to the downside. So Microsoft is having a down gap number. Remember, I'm not discussing the numbers on earnings, but just what the stock is doing directly after the close. And Microsoft at the moment is trading to the downside after reporting its earnings. On Mondelez, might not be a stock that you might trade, but nevertheless, Mondelez similarly is having a downside reaction after the earnings have been reported. These are, of course, what we call snap earnings or immediate earnings. Apple might be one to hold or push toward tomorrow morning. And that's because we had the initial up, had the down, and at the time of the video, which is after the market closes, we are seeing Apple, roughly speaking, similar a little bit to what Tesla did, is that it pushed up, pushed down, and otherwise started the next day flat and traded lower. So Won't make that prediction for Apple, but we will monitor it in any positions you have with respect to how it behaves in the morning session. So now we'll move from Apple. We'll actually skip over to Visa. And Visa is showing about a 240. It's a little bit wider on its earnings play, or the expected move due to volatility. Nevertheless, it's about 240 or 262. And Visa, this is another one, just like Apple, will have to wait until the morning session because Visa pushed down immediately off the announcement and has come right back to its closing price. So for reference, this shaded area is after hours, after the market has closed, and the earnings can be quite volatile. That's why the positions or butterflies or any type of spread is a good strategy to mitigate risk of any type of surprise move. You do have your risk controlled and, of course, your profit targets in, especially if it's an in-out type of spread. So Visa is starting, or at least at the moment, right about where it closed. And we'll finish with Google. Google does have a wide, relatively speaking, expected move. That's about 2790 and about 24. We'll zoom in a little bit into the 2485. These are, again, straddles and auto-generated. What's happening with Google? Google is having an upside break, but again, is coming back. So at the moment, that was 2770, and that is a little bit shy of that 2789, not by much. But what you want to do is watch these levels as the evening goes on. And of course, pre-market, the hour before the market opens, any type of pre-market movement, and then we'll have some clarity on these stocks. Moving on from the earnings, and again, we'll have some more tomorrow. We're getting a typical rubber band snapback. And remember how I look at markets. When they trend, they do make higher highs, higher lows, but it is not straight up. A trend is not straight up. It wiggles, it squiggles, and it has swings. So when the market is overextended, we tend to have a downswing or a rubber band snapback. Similar at this point, a little bit shallow, and the most recent one. So here we are overextended with a new high, and logically making, if this continues, another small pullback. Again, we have earnings from multiple large market cap companies, and we have the Fed day tomorrow. So we want to be a little careful for this week. It will be a highly volatile week. Please be careful with positions, and if you're new to trading, it could be helpful to wait until this volatility or the earnings or the Fed day is behind us, and that would be Thursday into Friday. In the Market Watch tab, we see the technology sector, just kind of looking at where the market ended today, was down, but it was not all down. In fact, the bearish or defensive sectors, such as utilities, had the strongest bid. So the whole market was not down, but the parts that matter were. That includes financials, was flat. Technology was the weakest of today. That includes the Nasdaq. And consumer discretionary. That again has Amazon as part of it in the sector grouping. Otherwise, the green was in the defensive sectors. We see that here as well. And finally, would not be doing my role without taking at least a small look at the stocks that made new 52-week highs. And they are some of the candidates that had earnings, Google and Visa. Outside of those would be the main ones for me to look at. But they did push up in our scan to 52-week highs. And again, Google's area of focus is 2,800. And that's Google, and then Google is 2,700. So keep in mind that is a little bit different on the pricing and how you're positioning into these stocks. They are different, GOOG and GOOGL, Google. And we'll finish up with Visa, which pushed up to a new high. PepsiCo did too, and there is Thermo Fisher, which has earnings, and a couple more. There's Costco, continued up with a new high, McDonald's, and just some of the other stocks in play. This will be a volatile week. It already is a volatile week. We've had a strong down day, a logical down day, a trend day that had a midday support reversal. Earnings are in play. The Fed day is in play. More earnings coming. As always, be careful and safe. This is Corey Rosenblum with tonight's Theo video update for July 27th, 2021.